In 2016, I had moved out of my parents' house and moved to my very first new house in the suburbs of New York, but I didn't live in the city. The house wasn't anything big or special, it was just a two-bedroom house, which is an appropriate sized house, especially when it's your first one. Besides my family or relatives, I've only kept in contact with about one friend whose name was Matt that lived in Rochester, which is about an hour and a half from where I lived. A few days after I moved in, Matt invited me to his New Year's Eve party. I didn't have any plans on New Year's Eve, so I went with it and said yes. Fast forward to New Year's Eve, I drove the almost 2-hour drive to Matt's house and got there around 7 p.m. Once I got inside, there was about 30 people in his house. Some out in the backyard, some watching TV, and even some playing cards while drinking beer. Matt offered me a few beers, and I gladly accepted as I am somewhat of a heavy drinker and would rarely decline a drink. The night went on well with people socializing and we counted down to the new year. I'd say maybe about an hour after the new year had officially begun, the party started to die down and more people started to leave. I was completely wasted at the time, and Matt said it was fine if I crashed at his place for the night in the guest bed. I was tired and too drunk to drive, so I accepted his offer. Most of the guests were already gone by then, so I decided to head upstairs and go get some sleep. I went to sleep almost immediately due to the alcohol, and I was asleep for about a good hour before waking up to the sound of a firework close by. However, just as I was about to go back to sleep, I heard the closet door creaking open. I have had childhood fears in the past about closet doors, and for whatever reason, they stuck with me. I got up and closed the closet door, but not even 10 seconds later, the closet opened again with its hinges squeaking. This time, I got a bit annoyed and went to go shut it again. As I was shutting the closet door, I felt a hand grab me from the closet. I screamed, and whoever it was then let go of me. I ran down the stairs telling Matt about what had happened, and he then called police. The police then came in and went upstairs and came back down with a homeless man in cuffs. Turns out, the police had found one of Matt's kitchen knives hidden inside his jacket. The man then admitted something to us that we still can't get over till this day. He said that he had been living under the guest bed for about 3 weeks and hasn't ever been discovered by anyone. The look on Matt's face said everything, and Matt moved out of that house a month later as he couldn't deal with the constant paranoia. On New Year's Eve of 2014, my girlfriend and I went out to a restaurant with my two friends, Felix and Nick, and I'm still friends with them till this day. I haven't seen them since college, and I remembered that I still had them on social media, so I invited them to meet up at Scotty's, which is basically a seafood restaurant. So, my girlfriend Sabrina and I get to the restaurant at around 8, while Felix and Nick got there around 9. We would be staying until 11, as we wanted to still see the fireworks on the water. As soon as my two friends came, we all greeted each other, and I of course introduced them to my girlfriend. So, fast forward about an hour later, we're all eating our food and waiting for the fireworks to start when my girlfriend tells me that she wants to take a walk on the little boardwalk that was near the restaurant. My girlfriend unfortunately has minor back problems, and so whenever she wants to walk or stretch to relieve the pain, I don't mind it. Fast forward 20 minutes later, my girlfriend still hasn't come back yet, and the fireworks were about to start in 5 minutes. I tried calling her, but it immediately went to voicemail, which was weird because she almost always answers her phone no matter what. Me, being the overprotective boyfriend I was, then started to get a bit worried that something may have happened to her. I told my friends that I was going to look for her and that I'd be back. I sort of jogged down the so-called boardwalk, thinking in my mind as to why I was so stupid for letting her go by herself. I jogged down the whole boardwalk, but I found no sign of her. I then began to go into panic mode, calling her name out, practically yelling. After about 10 minutes of me calling her name, I thought that all hope was lost. As I'm walking back to the restaurant, ready to call the police, I heard the blood-curdling screams of my girlfriend from about a half a mile away. I ran to where I heard the screams, and I found her lying on the ground with a pool of blood beside her. I ran up to her and she was relieved to see me. She was breathing heavily while blood continued to pour. I started crying while I called 911, but they thank God showed up in a matter of 5 minutes and got to her just in time. We ended New Year's short that night, and my girlfriend stayed in the hospital for nearly 2 weeks. One day, when I was visiting her in the hospital, she revealed the truth about what had happened. As she was taking her walk, she saw a homeless man in need for money, so she, being the nice person she was, handed him some money. The man then got up and stabbed her with a pocket knife and fled the scene. Till this day, I'm so glad my girlfriend is still alive, and I couldn't ask for anything better. My scariest experience in my life happened to me on New Year's Day when I was around 17 years old. I lived with my parents at the time, but my parents had very, if any, little interest in me. They didn't dislike me or anything, I just wasn't their top priority at the time as we were struggling financially and both my parents were busy every day. I had only one friend at the time who went to school with me named Rebecca. Rebecca was very kind, but I didn't like her addiction of smoking all the time. She'd smoke on a daily basis everywhere at school no matter what. What I'm trying to say is that it's very unhealthy, but hey, it's her choice. Anyway, Rebecca calls me and invites me to come hang out with her on New Year's Eve as she'd be home alone and wasn't old enough to go with her parents to the party they were going to. I didn't have any plans either, so I said yes. So New Year's Eve comes around and I tell my parents that I'm going over to Rebecca's house. My parents give the okay and I went on my way. Rebecca lived only about 3 blocks away, so I wasn't that far from me. I got to her house and she greets me, and us being the bored girls we were, decided to watch some TV. At one point, she asked if I wanted to take a walk with her, and I said yes, as I actually needed a walk myself. Rebecca's house was in a rural area, and there were woods about a mile away from her house, so we decided to walk near there. Once we got to the woods, Rebecca offers me a cigarette, and I politely decline. She then proceeds to tell me that one cigarette won't hurt me as long as I don't overdo it. I again declined, but she kept pressuring me into doing it, and at the end, I had to say yes. I took one puff, and I nearly puked after that. However, Rebecca then told me to shush, and that she told me that she heard something. It is nearly dark outside, so I couldn't see anything, but I then began to hear what she was talking about. The more I listened, the more I could make out what the noise was. It sounded like someone or something walking in the leaves about a few feet away from where we were standing. Now, this was before cell phones had built-in flashlights, so we couldn't see anything or provide any source of light. In fact, it was so dark I could barely see Rebecca. I told her that we should go and was worried that we could be on private property or something. However, I then heard the sound of a firework go off and the flash then illuminated the sky. It also illuminated what was about 3 feet away from us. I only saw him for a second, but there was a man dressed in all black wearing a hoodie. The scary thing was that he was carrying a sack behind him. Rebecca and I then both ran for it back to her house. When we got back, we locked all doors and making sure there was no way anyone could get in. We sat behind the kitchen counter waiting for another noise. Minutes felt like hours as we waited and waited. I had took a kitchen knife from the knife block and hid back behind the counter while Rebecca held a sledgehammer. As soon as Rebecca said if we should make a run for it, we heard several kicks to the front door. We knew right away that the man was behind the door, but before he could break it down, we heard sirens in the near distance. Police then came to the door and comforted us, while the other officers tried to find the man, but they never did. He got away with it free. Till this day, I still have an idea as to what was in that sack he was carrying, but I don't think I want to know for sure, because it's definitely nothing good.